not only coming for one session a week, but sometimes twice a week, sometimes double sessions. Sometimes also they're coming for anxiety, and then their wife has got something, or their wife has something, and then they're the ones coming to therapy, how to deal with that.
Therapy in general, as you know, for the face value of it, is having a friend.
Totally, right now I could be myself. I have nothing to prove to you. I don't have to impress you.
Where you actually have to come forward and share everything with your spouse of every addiction that you've done in your history to finally reach sobriety. Because when you're keeping secrets, it's going to impact your marriage, your relationship. You won't be able to heal.
Welcome back, everybody, to another fantastic episode of the None of Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Michael Greenfield, joined by my co-host, Ushy Schwartz. And today we have an amazing guest, Mordechai Weinberger, who's with us, the leader of Serenity Center, who's such an amazing sponsor of ours. Funny fact, by the way, is that Ushy Schwartz, who was with us on the podcast prior to this, asked, or a few podcasts ago, we asked him, like we ask every guest, you better be ready for it, to suggest a person as a guest for the next None of Your Business podcast. And he picked you.
I'm honored.
I didn't even know he knows you, to be honest with you. When he picked you, you guys weren't sponsors when we did it. And is that why do we owe him a commission? First of all, how do you know Maishi?
So Ushy is my brother-in-law. He married my sister.
Oh, okay. So you picked someone in the family. That's actually a very, very good sign. So thank you, Ushy, for choosing you. We're blessed to have you here with us. And before we get into that, thank you to our production team, Prime Source, and of course our sponsor, Serenity Center in Rockland County. That's available for anyone that needs therapeutic services, most of the time covered by insurance. We make sure to mention that. Did I do okay with that little plug?
Absolutely.
Okay, I appreciate that. So let's get right into it. Who are you? Give us a little bit of your background and let us have it.
So it's interesting. I started in the field 20-something years ago in the alternative field. Means not licensed, not going to therapy, and everyone was like interested, like not being licensed, some different modalities, even hypnosis. I got trained in that. It's like very interesting. After about doing it for a year, I am, Baruch Hashem, being successful, and it's time to get a parnassus. I figure I'm going to go study for my LSATs. And I'm going to be a lawyer, a real estate lawyer. Like that was sort of the trajectory where I thought I'm going. As that's happening, and as I'm studying and I'm doing pretty well on the LSATs, I'm going, but I love this. And I really don't know a lot about diagnosis. So I figured, let me consider doing that. And I start meeting people. I'm asking them, what do you say about being a social worker? And this one goes, my mother's a social worker, my wife's a social worker, my sister's a social worker. And they're like, no men in the field. Everyone's telling me, like, there's no chance that you're going to make it in the field. There's no need for male therapists. There's no need for therapy in general. This is going back 23 years ago. Like, therapy, we don't need in the frum world. We're okay. They're causing all the problems. I still go for my social work degree. And it is so different getting a different perspective from the alternative world to the social work world. And I like both worlds. We could even get into that, like how different they look at life. And then that is really, it's taking off. It's being beyond successful. Baruch Hashem, helping a lot of people. People are all coming privately, quiet. Like no one has, like people, I had a waiting list within 2 years of like almost a 6 month to a year waiting list. I'm going like, something's wrong here. And then prices are getting higher and we got to help people. One of the points I also noticed is that people are not only coming for one session a week, but sometimes twice a week, sometimes double sessions. Sometimes also they're coming for anxiety, and then their wife has got something, or their wife has something, and then they're the ones coming to therapy, how to deal with that. And then children. And also, this is not affordable. So while all that's going on, and I'm just realizing 10 years in the line, it's exploding, waiting lists, and like it's so hard dealing with people saying, please see me, please see my family, we got to do something. I realize I also need we got to get awareness out there. We can't have people going behind the scenes. So I do what I call analog, as you guys are digital. I had a phone line. I do a daily question and answer. I did like radio shows, which was then aired. It was like a pirated station in Brooklyn. And it just took off. People are asking live questions on a radio program, which was unheard of because we don't have problems. So while that's exploding, my waiting list is getting longer, but there's just only limit to what one person can do. And then I got to meet up with one of our friends about 6 years ago, and I go, we've got to do something to change it. And he says, you know something? We'll team up with you. We'll open up an agency. that will be covered by insurance, that you can have family members coming, but we want quality work. I'm not going to talk about in other places, but in other places, it's more like a factory. Like you're coming, you're going, you're doing your work. And what we did is we're focusing mostly on, you're getting beginner therapists, but beginner therapists, a lot of people by us have like lived experience. So you can have someone 40 going on a second career. So they've got wisdom, they have it, and now they're learning the skills and the tips. So just to keep myself busy, there's an entire agency going. 1 day a week, I keep my private practice, my skills, because I got to go through that. And when everyone loves you, but once you're the therapist, why is it not moving quick enough? Why isn't that happening? Well, you're 10 minutes late. How can you not put me? Like, you got to be in touch, always taking trainings. And while I launched this, I realized I'm kind of bored. So to add on things, I went back to college for my psychology degree. I've finished all the classes. I'm now on my last final year of my dissertation. So I realized that you just need the knowledge of, just like I learned a lot from the alternative world, then it moved to learning social work. There's a different head, like a different part of you when you're getting trained as a psychologist. And we can discuss each of those different mind frames, but it's completely different trainings. And it was hard for me to switch into a psychology mode.
Wow.
So I'm doing that too.
I'd love to hear about the difference between hypnotherapy, like you started in the beginning and you said that there's a difference. What is that fundamental difference? Like, how do you...
So I'll share with you, 20 years ago, I went to like the first conference where they had from therapists. It's not the first one, it's the first one that I was there. And I was talking about the subconscious. And they were all laughing at me because at that time, the primary therapy modality was CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And I've got a special training in that as well. And it's a beautiful system. And if I would just give an idea, we know now with neuroscience that the front part of the brain is where we think. It's called the frontal cortex, the cortex. It's right here. All our logic. I'm talking, that's new information. It's lighting up by you. Millions of brain neurons are turning on. At the same time, what we know is when we talk and we're looking, right in between our brain is a different part called the limbic system, and that has got a part called the amygdala, hippocampus. That's the part of the brain that's the fight or flight. While I'm talking, before it gets to your thinking, what I'm talking right now hits first the amygdala, and it's thinking, what he's saying, is that dangerous to me? Is that okay? Am I safe right now? What's he saying? Will he say something that now on the podcast is going to be terrible? That filter is our fight or flight mode before it gets to our thinking. So hypnosis and the alternative methods, which today there are a lot of professional evidence-based methods, are how do we get your fear mode to calm down so now you can use your logic? So let's take an example. Someone's afraid of flying. CBT would tell you, you're not afraid of flying. You can do it. It's safe. It's just a fear. Don't let the fear take over. How many times have you done something that was hard? Can we possibly do some exposure? Can you get on a plane? Can you experience it? Just sit there. Can you visualize it? So these are all telling the brain you can do it and giving behaviors where you can do it. The subconscious methods like hypnosis is, it gets right into the fear and sort of starts exploring, why do you have the fear? And old-time hypnosis is really, you're telling the brain you're not afraid. You can do it. It's easy. And when the subconscious says, I can do it, now you're on the plane and I can do it. It's not a problem. The challenge is, and I don't like going into like everyone like makes a system like it works and it's great. Part of the reason that knocked hypnosis out of the ballpark is that Hollywood got a hold of it and they started having like, you go to hypnotist and the bell rings and also you wire transfer all your money from one account to the other, and people got petrified of hypnosis, and they should be if that's how it works, but it doesn't work that way. We can't get you to do anything that you don't want. We can't get you to wire money. And I know you have the stage hypnosis, which I'm also trained how to do that. That's really true, but only works on 10% of the people. So you're always going to notice they always got like 500 people there, and they get maybe 5 to 10 that can get up there. And if you even notice that on the stage hypnosis, from the 10 people on, they're really using 2 most of the time. The other ones are more stage props, like sleep, and they fall asleep, but they realize I can't get you to do things. So in reality, hypnosis sounds great, and it's a phenomenal tool. There's a lot of it that we still know from the 60s that are really powerful. But it's a method that's meant to go into the brain, like the subconscious, and there are today a lot of updated systems that can help. So like the subconscious systems are one method of therapy, and they're now evidence-based systems, like something called EMDR for trauma. It's getting into that subconscious part, just moving your eyes. Another system called brain spotting, sensory motor, like so many different methods that are not talking to the brain. We're not telling you it's okay. We're just telling you we're getting into the subconscious, bypassing the talk, or you need to understand. You don't have to understand it. Just move your eyes back and forth quickly and we'll get there.
So once you move past the frontal part of it, there's many varieties of ways of dealing with it, right?
That's right.
Does this work for everybody? Like, is there anybody that you have not been able to?
So no method works for anyone. So one of the big differences that I learned when you're going into the alternative method and when you're dealing with professional methods are most alternatives tell you we'll help everything. We're going to get the sun to stop shining in the middle of the day. Just do this, breathe 3 times, hop 5 or 6 times, and it'll be done.
And wire me this money.
And why? Yes. And I actually want to defend in a moment all the alternative methods because I would say most systems out today, because I have a lot of training in the alternative methods, I would say I can see where the professional system stole them or borrowed them where they were earlier in the alternative. They just made them evidence-based. So alternative methods don't have the professional training of what are the limits to every system. Who is it good for? Who is it not good for? Who could it be dangerous for? Every system. I mean, if you really want to explode this thing, we can just talk about psychedelics later on, but it's the same thing where everyone's jumping to that and no one's talking about the warnings. Whoever is doing the alternative methods, like classic, again, alternatives, it'll change your life. And what about the people that were sent to psych wards that we still can't get them out of it because they're taking a drug and it's dangerous? But like,
give me an example. What's
very simple. I know someone, I have a client on my caseload where he did a psychedelic where he was going to someone that's doing shrooms, gave high dosages. It didn't work on him. So he just doubled the high dosage. The person was sent to a psych ward for about 2 weeks to stabilize with medication. He went completely nuts. He's seeing lots of visions and we can't get him out of that. It's not. Usually something leaves your system. It's a real drug. And now the person's stuck. So after that, with medication, he's now about a year stable, but we need therapists that know or understand these concepts, that also know the dangers. So, I mean, it's a whole different thing. I'm a huge proponent. I am for psychedelics. It's the wave of the future for certain population, for certain people, and certain ways. The danger is that we don't talk about the danger. So one of the big things I learned in the professional modalities, like I'm writing right now my dissertation, and I have to, at the beginning, I'm going to be working on trauma. So I'm going to be interviewing people with trauma. I have to be approved by something called the IRB. If I'm going to be speaking to someone that went through trauma, how do I know my questions are not going to re-traumatize the person? Question number 1, I got approval before I'm going to speak to someone. They have to see the questions. I'm going to have to get approval from the person's therapist, even if it was 10 years ago that the person's okay. There's a lot of safety systems put into the classical, everyone loves making fun of the Western system, but there's a benefit to the Western system. So, and I'm also going to have to write in my dissertation, what were the limits to the studies? So like, I only got people that maybe were responding to emails or that responded to wherever, but my dissertation's limited to the population that I interviewed. We're not making huge and gross, let's say, beliefs of saying that this will help everyone. So one of the first steps that I learned, differences alternative and the professional is, alternatives usually don't talk about limits. We probably can help you. And professional is, we're going to start, we'll see how it goes. We're going to go low, we're going to go slow because we don't want to hurt you. Medication, many times people are frustrated when they're going to psychiatrists. Why do I have to go every 6 weeks? Oh, because they want their money. No, because medication is a drug. We want to start slowly. We want to see how your body handles it. Even if 100 million people respond great with this drug, but there are 20 million that don't. We're not just going to prescribe it because, hey, 80%, it works fantastic. But what about the 20%? So the medical world, the Western world, has that little concern. And that's one of the big differences. But
I love that, by the way. It's great.
Can I jump back to something you
Go
said
ahead.
in the very beginning that really struck me? And I can really resonate with that because I think each of us here individually sees a vast difference between right now in the moment, today in 2024, than in 2012 or in 2002. And what you said was
2025.
2025. What did I say, 2024?
It's okay.
I'm still getting used to it.
I would just say.
Is there a grace period?
We're in a new era.
For how long I can say the previous year? It's got to be 30 days. I got up to
Yeah.
30 days.
I didn't even catch them.
Exactly.
I guess the inauguration.
2024, 2025, it's
Yeah.
all relative.
In any case,
Sorry.
what you said was that 25 years ago, this was something that wasn't even talked about, the word therapy. It was very stigmatized then.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward 20, 25 years later, now there's a lot of awareness around it. And it's almost like you're not seeing a therapist. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have that available and you're not capitalizing on it. Back then, it was, you're seeing a therapist? Wow, that's crazy. Like, you must have real problems. And then we discovered one day, oh, wait, all of us actually have problems. Surprise, surprise. And even though for a long time people were shoving things under the rug, especially in more religious communities where they didn't want to get word out that there were things that were really happening and they thought it was a better idea to cover it up, but then problems actually festered and started escalating, and it becomes to a point you can't even manage it anymore. And now you're reacting. Instead of doing prevention, you're doing treatment, which is a lot harder. So now today, there's a lot more awareness when it comes to this. And I think we're much more accepting of it. So I could just relate it to myself, even 10 years ago. And, I'm 38 years old. In my 20s, like, I would have never admitted publicly that I'm seeing a therapist or that I feel like I should be seeing a therapist. Now, today, I would shout it from the rooftops. All my friends know. It's not a secret. I love therapy. I'm a big, big fan of it. I think that being in tune with yourself, being in tune with your feelings, being in tune with your past and how that's affecting you today through your subconscious that you don't even realize, and somebody opening up your eyes to that and really making those connections is very healing, and it's how you can grow and become a better person. I do feel, however, and this is what I want to ask you, is that there is still parts of our communities, there are still parts even outside of our communities in the world where therapy is still looked at something that is frowned upon. Like, I don't know if it's made up. Hypnosis, you're mentioning that. You're talking about things in the front part of the brain, the middle part of the brain. Some people would laugh at this and say, this is all made up, or people are exaggerating. But why, how do we get more awareness around this? And what is your thoughts on really, what are you doing? It sounds like you're running a big program these days. You're trying to get it covered by insurance, which is amazing. I think every insurance company, like, it should be regulated. And insurance has to cover for any family member, should mandate it. Once a week, you should go to therapy for everybody in the family and so forth. Like, what's the mission here? How are you getting it out? And how are we going to bring more awareness to this?
Wow. So I'd like to take a step back when we're talking about the communities, like why the community was hesitant to accept it and where we are today. It's easy to just look at it like say, hey, they were hiding and stuff. And that could be part of it. But if we could also take a step back, let's say in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 1920s, the founding psychologist, Freud himself, was an atheist. And not only was an atheist, was anti-religion. So I had an opportunity to be close to Dr. Abraham Twersky Zatzal, and he shared with me he had an addiction center, and he was very close to a Catholic monastery. And he said they would send him all the priests and nuns to go to him because in the early 1960s, and this is, I can say the big names, they viewed if you're a religious person, whether Orthodox Jewish, whether Christian, you have a mental disorder, that you still believe it. So we were hesitant sending to therapists that believe against our religion, that if you came and you have an OCD, a religious OCD, they didn't look at it as we have today. OCD is an illness, is a challenge. It will hit you at your biggest issue. So if you're worried about religion, it'll hit you there. If you're worried about cleanliness, it'll get you there. If you're worried about something, they looked at it, no. OCD is a religious issue because religion is the problem. That was a change that psychology changed from the 1960s and on, where it started getting, it's client-centered. It's about you. It's not about us, the therapist, our belief and our opinion about you. So Rabbi Victor Miller, sometimes I get those pamphlets and you see his swiping at therapists, and everyone always shows it to me, oh, you're this big therapist, and he was like anti-therapy. And I go, if you look at it, if you see what he was dealing with, the therapists at that time were saying you send a religious person to a therapist, and they would go, the problem is you're too restrained. It's religion. Today, we're realizing every system is going to have their challenges. And if you don't have limits, and if you're going to look at the American system or a Western system where you can do anything that you want, and we're still struggling, and California, freest of all, has got like the highest diagnosis rates of so many things, including suicidality. So once we move away from the concept that religion was hesitant because we didn't have where to send, the belief was there's something wrong, and we're trying to protect the system. Like, we have a system, and every system needs to work within it. What changed was people like me. I'm from the first therapist out there. Rabbanim didn't asser me. When I was out there, I was speaking to everyone. One of my, 2-3 of my closest friends, like one is in Lakewood, Rav Matisyahu Solomon sent everything to him there. So in each area, they started opening up. In fact, Hasidim, which don't go to college. Now the Rabbanim are giving them heterim, go to college to be therapists. They are social workers. Their field, Hasidim, have exploded in a positive way because they see the need. So our system, if we can look at almost a 2,000-year system, we're resilient. We have a history. Our Rabbanim care. Everyone's always going to find that one or two. Don't give me that one or two. Give me your Rav. Your Rav cares and cares for you and cares for his Kehillah. And collectively, they're getting together and we're updating. And if you think about it, how long does it take to change a system in the United States? In 12 years ago, therapy was the worst thing. It's in every school. It's everywhere. This is a collective consciousness of our system.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the average person has more of a need to attend therapy and to, let me rephrase that. Do you think the average person has more trauma that relates around religion, which is infused with their personal life as well, and therefore you cultivate both of those, and they have a lot of trauma that they need to address? Or do you find that people that have no real connection to religion have just as much, like it's not about religion. Religion is just another variable, but therapy is applicable for every person. Every person has trauma for whatever reason. Like, is therapy a factor, is religion a factor in this at all? More so, less so?
So I'm going to ask you to ground me because I want to give a drop history and then I want to go to that question. But when I go history, I might forget to get back to the question. So your question is, how much does religion have a part to play? I would like to take your question first for a different question, and that is, should everyone be in therapy? And I have a belief. So as you said, you're shouting you're in therapy. I'm in therapy every week. And besides for that, every 6 to 8 weeks, I do an intensive therapy of about 7 or 8 hours. I've been sharing it when I did my first programs, and I share it on everywhere where I go. I am not embarrassed of it. I'm proud of it. And sometimes I get messages from the listeners going, I'm so disheartened. If you look like you're a healthy, functioning person, you've got a good business, you're married, you've got children, and you're in therapy every week, does that mean that now we're doomed for life? And I appreciate that question. So I'd like to differentiate that. I believe that there are 2 levels where we're going. There's level number 1, people that have trauma, people that are not functioning. That is one level of therapy. Then there's a different concept of like inner growth, self-awareness, being more than who we are. And I believe I will be on a journey for life because that's who I am. I don't need to go, like people are telling me, like, first, you're busy in the alternative world. Like, why do you have to get a social work degree? You're wasting money. You anyhow have a waiting list. Well, you know what? Getting educated helped me so much. I have a different lens. And then, like, I already have my own center. I'm a CEO. We've got 35 therapists, or close to 70 therapists at this point under us. Like, it's huge. We've got 3 psychiatrists under me. Like, why do I have to go for my doctorate? If I'm going to seek the same way I seek my emotional health, I'm seeking my knowledge and growth. And I have learned a lot becoming a psychologist. I'm learning a lot, like a dissertation. Why do I have to write a dissertation? Everything that I'm saying is very similar. I can show you studies. But my little chiddush that I'm learning how to do something, so I'm growing. So I personally believe that both are needed. There are people that are coming for issues, challenges. They deserve to have quality of life. And if not, we know the generations that it's impacting. We can just give classic examples. And there's a second part of growth. And I think we need to be focusing on growth-minded situation like that.
Which means everybody should be participating in this because everybody has self-growth that they can acquire. No one is just staying status quo. You got to keep growing and keep learning. If you go to like the average shul, how many people do you think are actually attending therapy on a consistent basis? Not have been to a therapist once or twice in their life, that are constantly going and you know, seeking out to learn more about themselves and to address things. Like 50% of people in our shuls, 20%. What's the number?
I would change the question. What percentage do I think that either them, their spouse, or their children, a family member has been to therapy?
Should be going.
Either should be, but even went. Because today, the parents, we might not be that open, but we're already sending our kids, our teenagers, and our young adults. Sure, like dating coaches is normal. Like everything became now, we're having coaches. So I would probably say a family member, I'd probably say 70% of people in shul have one member that has been to therapy.
That has been.
One time.
Have been, not necessarily
different
going.
question.
No,
Yeah,
because people have different views of therapy. First of all, therapy, again, it's expensive. I know that I'm not looking to spend, if you want, like, quote unquote, anyone decent, meaning they've gone through the clinic, so they've got their training, they now work their 3 years in private practice, starting pay is $225.
Yeah.
You're paying for 45 minutes. I know in my therapy sessions, I always need a double session because I need to talk.
Right.
So I need 45 minutes or 40 minutes to get it out. Now to start processing and getting what's going on, I need that extra 45 minutes. I don't know how, I mean, I'm sure people that are very wealthy, but the average person, or even for me, $500 a week for me to do my emotional health or staying attuned is very
It's
expensive.
not affordable. That's not affordable. And for people like the average person, even half of that is not affordable for the week.
It's not. And
If
you
anybody
got two
has
kids,
if somebody has insurance, a regular insurance plan, do they cover anything
So here's-
relating to therapy? If you want to
here is
know,
the breakthrough that we're going through. So my concept is I want to take insurance. I want you to have the best therapists, but they're relative beginners, but they have lots of skills or knowledge, and we have the top supervisors. Those that are charging $500 an hour, $250 to $500, they're the supervisors guiding the therapists. So I've changed several models in the way an average clinic works. Average clinic is you get a supervisee gets, let's say, an hour with the supervisor. So the supervisor, literally 40 minutes of that is about paperwork. Because if you don't have your documentation, insurance hits everything back, takes everything back with penalties. So not only did we not help you, well, we're losing and we're out of business. So first thing we've done is 1 hour of a top supervisor. He's not spending, she's not spending her time with paperwork. We have a separate team for documentation. You're having 1 hour of learning, discussing your clients, what to do. Second thing is I do every single week trainings in modalities. I am teaching you, so every one of our therapists doesn't just know one method of CBT or EMDR or trauma. I am teaching you DBT. I'm teaching you the latest evidence-based practices. I am still a clinician where I have the experience. So it's not just CEOs sitting up there doing podcasts. I'm sitting with people once a week. I'm giving trainings weekly. And then we have the clinicians go out to breakout rooms because some of them are on Zoom where they actually have to practice the skill on each other. So this is very different than someone, okay, I'm going to a therapist. I can't afford it. They're new. They don't know what they're doing. No, we have younger ones for children because we find when you're 40 and plus, you have less patience for the 6-year-old or the 8-year-old. But when you're 25, 20 or 30, like that's your age, it's your kids, you're dealing with that. You have that and they're relating to it. So that's,
is this covered by?
that is my agency. That's what, I don't know if we say their names or not, but like that was the dream that we want to do it. My goal
We
is-
say the names: Neil Zellman, Serenity Center, and you guys get a lot of credit because, like you said a minute ago, and I just want to say this, that trauma is definitely a big segment of therapy, right? So you're walking into a shul and saying, how many people here, are dealing with trauma? That's not our business, so to speak. But how many people should take advantage of the idea of therapy? I would say everybody, right? Right. The thing is, though, is that money obviously takes a role in it. So not every clinic is billing insurance. And also, it's difficult to get out there and go into a office building and you guys do a very good job. Like, there's noisemakers, there's private rooms in the waiting area when you come in. And the intake is like 2 seconds, so you don't bump into people, which I like.
Also do Zoom. I want you to know, everyone goes like Zoom. I love Zoom. I would say 50% of our clients that are coming in person first did Zoom for 4 months. I'm going to be meeting people. I feel uncomfortable walking through that door. It takes so much power to say, working on an emotional issue. It's practically impossible.
Yeah, I personally couldn't do Zoom during COVID. I paused because I can't do a therapy session, get a phone call in between a text. Somebody's honking at me if I'm in the car, so
Missing that human.
Yeah, the human connection to me
part
is,
of it.
but I like the idea.
Are afraid
Yeah.
of starting.
No, I like the idea for you're afraid and starting, similar to what I wanted to say a minute ago, which is therapy in general, as for the face value of it, is having a friend. Is having someone to talk to. Is just, is just letting it out. So many times, Ushy and I go through this in our lives, is that we just want to vent.
A judgment-free zone.
Exactly.
It's totally right now. I could be myself. I have nothing to prove to you. I don't have to impress you. Really, the way I look at it, why I love therapy is as a sounding board. I love to hear what I'm saying because I'm talking freely right now. I'm talking in a place where I know everything that's being said stays in this room. I don't have a reason to hide. I don't have a reason to sugarcoat things or to package things. I could just be raw, real, and I can hear myself say it. And I think that is really the biggest result that you get when you do, let's call it therapy, but it could be a friend that you trust. It could be just a third party that's just listening to you. And if the other person could be someone like yourself that's even educated and has the experience and can guide you and can keep the conversation going in the right direction so you're growing, all the better. That's like that's a lethal combination where you're doing both. You're really discovering things about yourself.
Right.
You have an expert on the other side who's being the referee. He's making sure that you're staying on the right path and you're noticing things that you're saying. He's quickly connecting it for you. I think that is an excellent outcome.
Yeah.
And I would add on one more component to that, and it's weekly. Do you know the power when you
Consistent.
speak consistent? When you speak to a friend, hi, this and that, but it's not holding you accountable. When you're coming next week, hi, we assume the therapist remembers. Sometimes they hear like they go to a therapist. He doesn't remember what I spoke last time, but she doesn't like, no. Your therapist should remember when you're walking in, either if they have to look up their notes in advance or they should remember that.
Because they should care. So if they care, they'll remember. But
That's right. But
That's my
the
thing.
power of consistency,
Yeah.
when you're going weekly, that's we'll almost call the interest. That's where you're getting all the benefits of.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I was thinking a minute ago while you guys were talking, the back of my brain was telling the front of my brain, the front of my brain was telling the back of my brain to be quiet and wait till you guys finish. Not everyone has friends. And this is a challenge that I've seen more and more every
Talked
single day.
about this, Michael, in the past, one of our podcasts.
Yeah.
About people that don't have that one go-to,
Yeah.
just, they share everything with each other type of friend.
Right. So
And you're going to have a harder time navigating your life without that. That's a really big asset that if someone doesn't have the good fortune of having, and you and I disagreed, I said, I think everybody has that. I think everybody has at least one person. You were very adamant. You said, no. There's a lot of people. Did you say most people?
Yeah, I said a lot of people don't have friends.
I
Yeah.
agree with Michael, and I actually agree with both of you. But what I would like to take Michael's side is, we might have a lot of acquaintances and people that we speak to, but how many people can you share your deepest fears?
Not only that, the person that you could share your fears with that doesn't want to respond to you with their deepest fears.
That's right.
That happens so many times when you talk to a friend and you tell them about your challenge. I had such a hard day. Oh, I also had such a hard day.
Right.
I'm not interested in your hard day. I'm telling you about my hard day. My point of my message that I wanted to send was, and I think that this is, you can resonate with this, is that if you don't have that friend that is non-judgmental, sounding board, and a little bit, knowledge of how to deal with therapeutic stuff, then buy a friend. Literally. Let insurance pay for it. But the consistency and the idea of going to somebody is so important. What's more important, going to the gym once a week or going to therapy once a week? What do you think?
That's a hard one because I think both are important.
What if you had no choice?
And
You
we're
can
not
only pay
doing
for
any of
one.
them, unfortunately.
You can only pay for one. What do you do?
I believe in the mental health because the mental health will, but I also believe in your physical. I can't even
It's a tough one, right? No, and the reason why it's so tough,
Physical-
right? Because the physical part also,
feeling great, your endorphins are going, and now you're coming home positive. On the other hand,
Michael, when it comes to the body,
Right.
I mean, it depends what you're like. If you're talking
right, to your
about-
right hand to your left hand.
You go to the
have
gym
take-
so you can have the aesthetics of of an Adonis body. That's not necessary. You go to mental health comes
right.
first. Somebody who's obese, somebody who literally is at risk for many diseases because of their weight, then they should probably deal with their physical.
right. So I would say my point was people are sometimes mentally
Yeah,
obese.
if both are sort of, if
That's
both
what-
are on the same
Yeah.
scales, your mental acuity
health.
is a lot more important.
Yeah.
Your internal, how you're feeling. You could be looking amazing outside, but if you're hurting inside,
I just want you to know,
what's
by
it
the way,
worth?
I just want you to know I chose mental health. I have a six-pack up here.
Exactly. Let me ask you this: when we talked about this, Michael, in the past as well. And I said, I think that, in our schools, okay, that's where it all begins. The youth, that's where it all starts. And what I said was, we've, instituted certain things that we, whether it's speech therapy, let's get them, early, right?
early intervention.
Early intervention, that type of concept. Even gym in schools these days, it's once a week, twice a week, they have to go to gym class as well. Why isn't there, and can there be a way that we start really bringing so much awareness to this that we mandate, we regulate that in any school, once a week, every single student needs to attend a one-on-one therapy, a mental wellness check-in with a professional, with someone, and this is part of the routine. It's part of the ritual as they grow up, grade 1, 2, 3, 4, and you keep it going, get them started early so we don't let things build up and we don't wait until there's a problem. Let that communication start flowing early.
So I agree with you 100%, and I would probably tweak it a little. So first, let's start. In Serenity, we have already reached out to several schools. It's possible to get them through the government, which we have to have a satellite. We're already 7 months in the process. And as ever, always dealing with OMH and always with other places, you know how things go whenever you want to start or do something. There's always going to be obstacles. What we actually want to do is do more groups, which means, let's say their social skills. Today, anxiety. Imagine when you're going one-on-one, sometimes as kids will open up, teenagers will or won't open up. But in groups, it's a lot more, they're a lot open. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to start discussing anxiety, and let's just take worry. So take out the word anxiety and say, how many times do you have to have a podcast and you're concerned, hey, maybe the person won't show up, or maybe it won't be a good podcast, so you got negative feedback. And then all of a sudden you have a couple of podcasters together and going, yeah, we used to have at the beginning, but less at the end. We used to have, and all of a sudden you're reinforcing to others, oh, we had it. This is a normal fear. Or what about if you ever have to sneeze? What happens if you ever need the bathroom? Like all these questions, and also you just say, okay, we're all normal for the same fears. We're all normal with the same doubts. So in groups is where people can share, or after that, and you also teach skills. We could get into the moment what I find the youth, I think, like I always like getting asked, like, what's the benefits of mental health awareness, which everyone knows about it, and the challenges we can go to it after that. We're losing our resilience, especially the kids going, I can't, it's too hard. I'm not dealing with that. I see Claudia's role. We're dealing with a whole new issue that we never dealt with. I don't know if it's COVID. I didn't really see the studies yet if it's in the non-Jewish world as well. But where 7th graders are saying, I'm not going to school. They're not, it's not that they're hating school. It's not that they're being bullied. It used to be a phenomenon why they don't want to go to school. Now it's, I'm not going, and you can't push them. And you have those old schools saying, kick them out. The parents try that. Get them to therapy. They're not listening. They're not opening up. And this is a whole separate issue where we're losing our resilience, and there's a way to build it up. And I actually believe the group process of sharing, how do you overcome?
I have to mention, I was just talking to someone yesterday about this, and I'm just thinking while you're talking now also about a group and serenity and anxiety, a new look on AA. Instead of Alcoholic Anonymous, right? Alcohol. What is it?
Yeah, that's Alcohol Anonymous.
Alcohol Anonymous.
12-step. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I go to ACA group.
Anxiety Anonymous.
Yes.
Making a group of people that just are recognizing, not that we're, battling every day with it, but we recognize that anxiety is a real thing, and where it comes from. And from a man's perspective, having a group of men sitting in a room and talking about the challenges of the masculinity part of, challenges of
Stigma.
Why am I anxious? What am I doing with my spouse or friends or relationship at work?
bills.
Let's sit in a room and talk about it. AA, Anxiety Anonymous. Are you in?
I'm in.
What about you, Ushy?
Listen, I'm in for anything. You know that. I'll try anything one time. Michael, you had some questions here that I skimmed through.
You know what? Then let me do the lightning.
By the way, you have...
Was she asking for a lightning round?
because they're amazing. Some of these questions are phenomenal. I would love to hear
All right,
your take on these things.
There was a podcast a few podcasts ago where Ushy said, take it out to the barn, shoot it, and it's gone. I took that.
Well, Michael, it's all about the content.
I just want to tell you
When
something.
you come up with questions like this, I'm all for it.
I just want to tell you something. Ushy said it, and I said to myself, I'm not taking it out to the barn and shooting it. I'm going to reconstruct it. And I sat down and thought to myself, if I'm doing a lightning round, I'm not giving up on this lightning round, by the way, in general. I came up with this concept of a lightning round, and it's like, fiery hot topics, one-word answers. It's been going okay. And Ushy the other time was saying, nah, it's not working. And I sat to myself and I said, you know what? If it's not working, then maybe he's right. But maybe I need to redo it somehow. So I took it and I said, let me ask questions that are relevant specifically to the guest and ask hot topic questions that come up. So I think I came up with
I
a
feel
couple
bad
of
for
ones.
him because some of these questions you're going to have a hard time just saying a yes or a no to. It's a loaded question.
All right, so here we go. We have the lightning round brought to you by Serenity Center. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. They're quick-witted answers. The only thing that you have the ability to do is you get to answer one question with none of your business.
Okay.
You get one pass, so use it wisely.
Should a spouse have access to their partner's phone? Yes or no?
Yes.
Can exes ever truly be just friends?
Oh. Depends.
Is flirting outside of a marriage, let's say you're at a restaurant, harmless or dangerous?
Oh, come on. These are all both.
I like that he's squeamish. He said, I'm doing a good job. Should you tell your friend if you don't like their spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend? No. Never. Stay out of it, you're saying. Is it okay to fake happiness in a marriage for the sake of the children?
For short term, yes. Absolutely.
Can men and women truly be just friends?
Okay, pass.
You mean none of your business?
I'm not doing that either. I'll reserve that for something else.
Is love at first sight real?
Yeah, for the first hour or two.
I like it.
And then it kicks in.
Just a couple of more. Is it better to be feared or loved?
Both. Either one's dangerous.
Can teachers, even for a high five or a pat on the back, ever touch their students?
In reality, they all do. It's impossible not to. It has to be appropriate.
Have you ever hit your kids?
Maybe once from all my 6 kids in history.
Okay, you didn't use any of the none of your business, so I like
All
that.
right, so Michael, now that we got past that, I want to go right into the first one.
Okay.
And you answered yes to this question. And a lot of people listening right now,
I know.
like this is a big topic.
Yes.
And I have my personal feelings on it.
We will discuss
But
it.
I'd love to hear why you said what you said. Should a spouse have access to their partner's phone? Now,
Absolutely.
let's all remember that into the world that we live in, our phones, you can learn about
Everything.
someone in a few minutes
Exactly.
by going through their phones.
Exactly.
Okay. So
And
phones are
their
very
private
personal.
search as well.
Yeah, phones
You'll
are
get
very
a lot more there.
yeah, phones are very personal.
Yeah.
So almost in a way, what we really asked you is it okay, is it recommended for a spouse to be able to read their spouse's minds, and which is the only sanctimony that they have, the only like things that's sacred that can live in your head that other people can't necessarily see. The next best thing is their phone. Give them your phone and you can get a whole world on that person. So you said that, yes, you think that they should have access to each other's phones. Please explain.
I would shift it back to you. If you're married, and if we're going to the ultimate level, let's take a step back. There is a psychologist, and this chart is something that we use all the time. It's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is something I'll explain to how we used in the Holocaust, and we'll see where we are and how Claudia saw, like how the nation is growing. There are 5 steps. He says every human must have these 5. He believed they're in that order, and I'll go through them. But we know now you could change orders, but they're musts. He says, so the first one is physical needs. We need to be able to breathe. If we don't have oxygen, we're dead. Our emergency, our immediate need is, how do I breathe? Food. If we don't eat, we're dead. So that means first thing is you must make sure your physical needs are taken care of.
Yep.
And otherwise, you're not looking for the second level. So imagine a pyramid, which is your emotional needs, emotional safety. So first one is, do you have a house over to live in? Otherwise, you'll die of hypothermia. Do you have food? Otherwise, you'll die because you didn't eat. Second level is now, are you in a safe environment where you're not being physically beaten, where you're not going to be killed, but emotionally you're going to be traumatized and abused, that we see those people, they can't function. But they're functioning more than someone that didn't have what to eat. So first level is physiological. Second level is psychologically safety or physical safety. But we're not talking about death. The third level is now starting to belong. You need to be in like a community, like where you have, like we have friends. Our community is an amazing level. Yes.
Connections, relationships.
And everyone needs connections, whether you're Jewish or not. Then comes your level. Who are you? Like, what do I like doing? Starts being a me. I start existing. And then comes the highest level, which is, I just forgot those terms for that, but that is sort of like creating something in the world. Now, let's take a step back. Most, depending on where your marriage is, or depending on how we view our life, is where is going to answer that question about your cell phone. If you're in your marriage, as was one of those questions, that because you're doing it for the sake of the children, stigma about divorce, which really doesn't exist, but anyhow, but those people are still stuck with that stigma. Maybe your kids won't be that well off if you divorce because it's 2 separate homes, a little confusing, whatever it should be, that people are staying in a marriage. But you're not at that highest level where we're really one where I can share with you my deepest, darkest secrets. You can know it. In the essay, in the sexual addiction systems, is a part where you actually have to come forward and share everything with your spouse of every addiction that you've done in your history to finally reach sobriety. Because when you're keeping secrets, it's going to impact your marriage, your relationship. You won't be able to heal. That's a disclosure stage. You have to be a while in therapy, and you have to get your wife prepared for that. But in the essay addiction, the 12-step, and that's a very vital component, because now that there are no secrets, this is who I am, this is who you are. Are you going to accept me? And will we finally heal? Will we actually address the issue? So now let's go to that cell phone. It was a black and white question that you asked. Now my answer is, where's your marriage on this triangle? Are you just together, but emotionally there's no connection? Are you together and emotionally there's connection? Are you emotionally, and you guys are really meshing, you like similar things, you respect each other's differences? Are you now that she knows your deep needs, you know her needs, you're accepting that we might have different needs, but I can share it? And then the ultimate level is, I see my growth through you. You see your growth through me. My challenge that I have, you, my spouse, is actually that right and left foot. You're going to balance my challenges, my shortcomings. If you find someone that's very outgoing, most likely both your wives are quiet and very homebound people. That's the balance. Otherwise, imagine how your kids will be. You guys are out there all over. Who's going to take care? There's a dirty diaper. Oh, who cares? But right now, let's go out for dinner. Let's go meet some friends. Don't worry. Let's be on the phone. There's that balance, that yin or yang that happens in marriage. So if your marriage is at that level where you want to get to that level, self-disclosure, what are you hiding on that phone that you don't want her to see?
Well,
My answer is, I'm sorry, my answer is I'm not at level 5 yet.
That's right. And that's the answer.
by the way,
Great.
That's okay.
98% of us aren't,
That's
and
right.
you're setting a lot of people up for divorces. Like if you're encouraging this,
I am
and
raising
saying
the bar.
No, he's right, exactly.
I'm raising the bar. Know where your marriage could get to. If
Yeah.
you think it's acceptable, like we start making a rule, it's unacceptable for a spouse to ever look at your phone. What we're saying
it's
is
an invasion of privacy.
an invasion. I love these words, invasion. Why is there?
First
what
of all,
is more
I'll
intimate
tell you
than
what.
marriage?
It's not about that. First of all, on my phone is not
Yeah.
just my information.
Yeah.
It's other people's information as well.
That's a
that they're
different
sharing
subject.
exclusively with me. That they're not anticipating my wife or my children or my sibling to be looking through it because they don't want to share that with them. They're sharing with me. So it's not just my information.
Okay,
That's on
that's
there.
a different point.
I'm protecting whatever else is going on.
Granted on that.
As
So
well.
let's change it. Let's change your question. Can you have a cell phone where friends can share private stuff with you, HIPAA stuff, where you don't have to share it? Okay, well, I'm talking about your cell phone, about you. We're not talking about others. Let's take it to you. Do you want your marriage to get to a level that you're not afraid that if your wife opens up anything and everything is there, that's the place we would like to get
Aren't
to?
there just some things that don't need to be
It
shared?
might be better.
Aren't there
Yes,
something?
a whole separate
Shouldn't there
subject.
be a little bit of space that everybody
take out
has
the
on their
word
own?
should, and let's do, is it beneficial? Because everyone's going to be different. Is it beneficial to have your own space? Absolutely. But the point is, there's a trust that if she would ever ask, can I look through it? She might never look through it. But you knowing that whatever you got there and however you're texting people is going to be appropriate, that if your wife sees that, she'll feel okay. And you'll feel the same, by the way. What about trust to her? How do you feel that you know your wife, you never have to look, but you can trust that if you say, hey, I want to look through what you text, and maybe say, you know what, this person's going through, I don't want you to look at their thing, but you feel the feeling of trust that you know she's not texting inappropriate stuff. How would you feel?
I would trust her enough.
I was
that
exactly-
I
I
don't
was-
feel compelled to look through her phone, and I'm aware that there are going to be things there that I probably don't know a whole lot about. I don't know everything about it. But I want to give you an example. An example would be, let's say I have really foul language that I use, in a certain manner with certain people. And I don't do that in front of my family, and I don't do that in front of just anyone. And that's sort of a side of me that, for whatever reason, that's how I engage with that, group of people. I don't want my wife seeing that, and therefore I want to keep that private. I want to keep it to myself, and I also don't think I'm hurting my wife. I don't think I'm lying to her by her not sort of seeing that and making it so visible to her. I just think that there's the phone is just like the one thing that everybody has that's to themselves, because it's really just you and internal. Like, why do I need to share that with other people? I feel like you're just opening yourself up, and it's a perfect
Does
world
she
that
know
you're
about
that you're
that
painting.
side?
What's that?
Does she know about that side? Let's say theoretically, if you would like.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. And I'm not saying that the example like
I know. I want
I'm saying
to
theoretically.
process. So there are different levels that we can get to, and I think if we would start, let's take a step back, because I have a lot of knowledge about the addiction language, or not just. I don't want to call this addiction, but our deepest secrets is actually going to destroy us. If you don't have a place to share, let it be a therapist. It's completely HIPAA compliant. No secret gets out. In the way you break addictions, the way you break anxiety, the way you break almost any challenge, financial issues. You know how many people don't want to share everything with their accountant because they'll know where I'm spending, or legal issues. If you don't share it with the lawyer, there's no way he or she's going to defend you. If you're not sharing it with the accountant, they can't help you budget. And the same thing goes on in ourselves. If you've got secrets there, those secrets are going to pull you down eventually. Now, I'm okay. You don't want to share that with your spouse, fine. But who are you sharing the authentic you? And that is a big goal with therapy, is to help us get the two together. And many times when people have addictions, and sometimes we hear scandals happening, or how, it's because there's a split person in that person. There's the public outside world, and then there's the me. And if we don't get these two reconciled together, we're stuck.
Okay, I hear. This is obviously a very controversial topic.
Very enlightening.
And a lot of
I
people have different thoughts.
No, but it was very insightful the way you
very
proposed it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Look, I think if somebody is like just like paranoid to the point that he's like always hiding his phone and like he's
And
not,
let's clarify.
not letting everyone look.
Right.
I hear that's very
And let's
extreme.
clarify,
I agree.
I'm not saying
but
that
there's
a
just
husband
somebody,
can tell the wife, I want to look at your things. That's, again, overstepping boundaries. Do you ask, is it okay for a husband, let's say, to be able to go through the phone, or a wife to feel comfortable that everything is okay? Trust has also got to be earned.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, there were a lot of other questions here also that was not comfortable to answer.
What
yes
would
or
you
no.
say? What would you say if I tell you the same question about a financial partner? Would you allow your financial partner to go through all your books, no matter what?
No, I wouldn't want that either.
No, you have to. That's something else.
Financial partner.
Financial
Yeah,
partner.
financial. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
I thought you meant like
No,
No, just
let's say you have a
financial.
business
Sharing with your
partner.
spouse only.
No, a
Yeah,
business.
okay.
No, a business partner going through the expense.
They have the right. You better
But it's
make-
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't want them knowing that I spent some of our money there when
Yeah.
they should have spent somewhere else.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the question you asked. Is it okay to fake happiness in a marriage for the sake of kids? And I'd like you to elaborate on that question, because this is, this is a big one.
Big one.
I'm going to go with the cursing on this also. I don't curse in front of my kids ever, and I curse a lot.
Yeah.
And
I don't think you're a big cursor.
No. But I don't even do it in business. I just do it.
Who do you do it to?
Behind closed doors, close friends.
yourself and
When
in the mirror?
No, my therapist. No, but the point is that like, I'm not being fake when I come home. It's just a rule. It's like a certain thing, like
Right.
I have, right? So I'm wondering if the same thing can be applied as a rule when you're coming into your house and you're dealing with the challenge with your spouse and your kids are seeing. Is it okay to sort of like, it's fake, but it's not, meaning like getting along or happy or so on? So that was where
I think to really give this
Please.
question a little bit more credence, I think you have to look at the two extremes. Let's talk about two people that have not been getting along for a long time. They have a hard time even being around each other. Like they're really, really just not in sync whatsoever. And they choose to live this way and stay married for the next 25 years for the sake of their kids, whatever that means. And we'll get to in a minute if that's the right approach. And they're basically not happy, but they're putting on a front for what they think is a greater good for the sake of the family. Or is it better to just get divorced, just move on, and that will give you a better outcome? And you're actually not even getting the benefits you think you're getting, because that direction is causing more harm. Those are kind of the two ways. And obviously, we have a little bit of area in the middle, but those are the two extreme things. Like
I was going to say, the area in the middle means that you don't just get divorced. You go through therapy, you work
Right.
it out, you try,
Yeah.
but you realize after all that I guess, right? Let's
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
put a bow on this question.
So the answer is each case is really an individual case. Sometimes, so if we go back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it depends what's needed. So I have a good friend of mine, Davin Shul. He tells me his grandmother was in the DP camp right after the war, lost her entire family. His grandfather was also in the same DP camp. He says, and his grandmother was like smoking a cigarette, like with that extra piece that they had in those times. And his grandfather goes over to grandmother and says, I have no family. I heard you have no family. Would you like to get married? And she's holding the cigarette and she goes, you look like a nice man. Yeah, I'll marry you. And he says, like, they stayed married and they were different. They had ups and downs. And on Maslow's level, on the first level, they needed to live. They just needed a nice Jewish boy, a nice Jewish girl. Heard she has, lost everything. She looks nice. She doesn't seem overly traumatized. She's not yelling and screaming. They're waiting for food. He noticed her
But
for
they
a couple.
stayed at level 1.
So here's where the question is. So if a marriage on level 1, they're not fighting, they're not damaging the kids, if that marriage can stay that way, and that's their choice, remember, I'm not judging. I can't judge what's best for you, and I don't want you to judge what's best for me. If that couple chooses to do that, then that's okay. If they now choose, if they can live amicable or not damage, and then go to a second level where, okay, we pay the bills together, we'll go to weddings together, but I have my friends, you have your friends. It's almost like texting, you doing this, doing that, Shabbos, however it works out, and they're okay with that, do that. We can talk about the damages of that. Bowen is a major family therapist, and he shares that what the children are seeing at home is actually going to emulate. That's how their brain, the subconscious and conscious, thinks this is normal. Mm-hmm. So when many times children come from dysfunctional, abusive homes where their father or mother used to beat them, now they're not hitting, but they're yelling and screaming, and there's such resentment. And when you tell them, you see what you're doing, they go, no, you have no idea how healthy I am. I am the most healthiest person because what I grew up was unhealthy, and you're trying to tell them, no, this is still unhealthy, their brain can't recognize it. So that's sometimes the challenge when we think, okay, we're staying in the marriage. On the other, what about the other case? And I don't want anyone to jump, because whenever you talk about when you question someone that gets divorced, somehow when you push them to stay, you get whatever. But what about when you teach people to divorce, you just bailed? And sometimes they go, it was so abusive, right? But did you try everything? Did you invest in it? Were you willing to sometimes take challenges? And sometimes the kids learn, we just bail on things. So we have to have both ways. It's, did you do your best?
Right.
It's not other judging. No one will ever know what really happened. No one. Barely the therapist does. At Serenity, our goal is to give you top-notch private practice experience in an agency setting. That means we take all insurances, and this is individual, this is group, and this is most importantly, you can do it in person, on Zoom, or even over the phone. We're here to help you break the stigma, get help, and have it affordable.
Let's go back to this lightning round. There were a couple of questions here where you weren't able to answer yes or no. Can exes truly be best friends? That question came from like a husband and wife that, and the kids are seeing it. Yeah. Like, is it okay to be friends? And there are families that do things. They go on cruises together.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Is that like, I'm assuming the answer is obviously it's okay, right? It's encouraged.
It's not obviously when you're talking about when they're exes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of challenge. It's very confusing because sometimes they get along. And when there's an ex, that means there was a divorce.
Right.
It means we couldn't get along. But then going on cruises together where you're long terms together, you're a long time on a boat where you can't get off, there's a reason why there's a divorce. Either him or her, or you're triggering each other. You could be great people, but together it's just
what if together for 3 days they're perfect and they can go on vacation? I actually know of couples that got divorced, and with their kids they spend, they go to Florida together, they stay in separate houses, but it's
that's the point. That's space. So
yeah.
If there's space, sure, absolutely, that's okay.
Right.
Most of the time, the divorces is because we can't handle it. So just take a classic example. He likes being on time to something. She's 2 hours late, or vice versa. And they're now together on this cruise, and they're going to sit together. And once again, she's late. And he's like, are we waiting for her? Like, why don't you text your mother? Where's she coming? Like, we're waiting, the whole family. And you're going to... So
True.
The triggers that happen they don't leave. The divorce is saying, I can't handle your triggers, or you can't handle my triggers.
I had a friend of mine that once got divorced, and he came to me afterwards and he said, why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you tell me? You knew she was whatever, fill in the blank, right? And I said to him, you were already engaged. It's like my father once taught me a long time ago. If the woman is at the wedding asking you, how do I look in this dress? You look amazing. No matter what you're already at the wedding. It's too late. If you're in the bathroom and you're changing and you wonder how I look, okay, you have a rip in the back, you should fix it, or it's not fitting right. So that same story, like, what are you supposed to say to a friend if you have a friend that's dating someone and you realize they're doing something terrible to them and it's not bringing the best out of them?
I'll share with you a great story in the bungalow colony where someone shares with me that his father, he was a bit of a rebel, and his father calls up the principal and says, what do you say information about this girl? He goes, run away. She's a rebel. He goes, sounds like my son. And they're married and happily married. And like each pot's got its cover.
You're saying, it's none of your business. Stay out of it.
If there's information you feel that might help them or
right.
be aware of, then just say, this and this.
That's a great point, by the way, that you're saying. So I should tell my divorced friend who's asking me why you didn't say anything, the answer is because I don't know your situation.
That's right.
And sometimes for a person that might be arrogant, their spouse potential is a person that's not so arrogant.
That's right.
So, when I say your spouse potential is arrogant, that's what works for you.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I do like that. One of the other questions we went through also here, which I thought was a fun one, which was, can a man and a woman be friends? And I know it's potentially taboo and it's a challenge and, what do you do with that? But I have to tell you, in business, I'm friends with a lot of women and I'm genuinely friends with them. And I think that I'm sanctifying the world that we live in and God and our religion and Judaism when I'm respectful to them and I can just be friend. They know they can call me for advice. And I go to a lot of trade shows and I want the people at the trade shows to know that you can be respectful and respectable when it comes to the opposite sex. And I think it's important to recognize there's a limitation and there's a boundary, right? So how do you do that? How do you give a message to people who are in the business world? Especially young men and women who are going into the business world who they're like deer in the headlights at a trade show. Like, oh my God, I've never hung out with so many of the opposite, type of people in my life. Like suddenly I'm with men and I've never been with men. And suddenly I'm with women, I've never been with women. So how do you go about that, challenge and balance that respect versus being friends versus, taking it to the next level?
I think this depends on various levels. So first of all, various factors. There's a religious level. How comfortable are you? Like, what does friendship mean? Is friendship talking and doing a business? Is friendship shaking hands? Is friendship giving a hug? And you need to go through your religion level, get through that filter. So this way you're now comfortable with what you're doing. Then comes the second part of learning to interact with other people. There's like a tremendous amount of therapists that will only work with men, women that will only work with women. And I think that's wonderful. But I personally found, and the ones that I speak to is, as a therapist, I need to be able to work with both, because if I'm working with a husband, I don't see the perspective side of the women. I haven't dealt with that at all. It impacts me, but it's a professional relationship where it could be high and like we're really getting into things, but it's on that level. So I think everyone really needs training on how to get comfortable where you are based on your person and your religion level. So I think for frum people, that's their boundary.
I don't remember what you said about fear or love. Which one did you pick?
I would probably pick love, but I said both because I like very much the 80-20 rule. Like I use it all over in life. So in business is the concept that 20% of your clients will take 80% of your time. And you want to put 20% of the challenges to 20%. You want 80% actually focusing on the clients and the customers that are good. The same 80-20 rule has been proven in psychology that when you want to, the psychologist's name is Dr. Gottman. He is a PhD psychologist. He was also an MIT mathematician. And it's brilliant. He's able to predict a divorce to 91% when an average therapist could get maybe 35%. So he took mathematics and he combined it with psychology. So one of his metrics to see how a marriage will go, I can mention a couple of them, is, so we're sort of in a room like this, a camera, on the other side, a glass, a mirrored glass, a one-sided mirror. And one of the things he has is like on the chair, something called a jiggleometer, he calls it. And that is to see how many times the husband and wife are looking at each other or the relationship is, and the chair is shaking. And there's like an average number that normal couples have when you don't like each other or when you like, and then like if you hate each other, like the jiggleometer is like off the charts. That's one of them.
Is it actually called the jiggleometer?
He calls it a jiggleometer.
That's a great name.
Isn't it a great name? So he has another concept which is called the 5-to-1 principle. And this is great for anyone in marriage or anyone having a relationship that you want to build. And he says, for every 5 compliments that you give the person, or in his case, it's marriage, your spouse, you could give 1 critical comment. He says marriage is when he's doing marriage work and they see the failure, it's 5-to-1 in reverse. There's 5 criticism for every 1 compliment that they give. It's the same 80-20 principle. That means if you take 5 times 2 is 10, you get 2 criticism for every 10 comments, for every 8 positives. So now, fear or love? If you're going to allow 20% of your customers take over your whole business, you'll be ignoring the good customers. And you're going to be losing your whole business. If you're always busy complimenting, you're so great, but something bothers you and you resent it, you keep it in, and you don't address it, you don't give that 5-to-1 ratio, you're going to end up resenting your spouse. 5 compliments. Notice 5 things that you like, something that you don't like, and discuss it. So therefore, I feel it should be 80% love, 20% fear. That's how I would answer that.
Well, that's a great answer. I have to tell you, my brother, Rabbi Yitzchak Greenfield, he's a marriage therapist, counselor. He just created.
He's your brother.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine. We were together on that radio, that pirated.
The pirated radio.
He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's very good.
I did not know that.
He just came out with a whole program of dealing with marriage challenges, and it has a game integrated into it to work on your marriage. He once said, and something that resonated with me, and I'll end with this. He said, you have to wake up every single morning with the cup being empty. And it's your job to fill up that cup. And that cup gets filled up with compliments. It gets filled up with love. It gets filled up with recognition. You wake up in the morning, good morning, you look amazing today. Or have a great day, I'm going to miss you. Those are filling up the cup. And I took that to the bank, and it works for me tremendously in my relationships. And it just helps with children, with spouses, with friends, with business partners. People forget that, your business partner is not just all about business. It has to be the emotion side. It has to be the relationship. You come in, you see your business partner. Good morning. Wow, you look good today. I like your sweater. At trade shows, it's one thing I teach everybody is the first thing you say to someone is a compliment. And there's always something to compliment someone with. So that's what I learned from my brother Yitzi. And that's what I call him, by the way.
He's great.
I appreciate that. Before we let you go, though, we're going to ask you one final question, which we always ask every guest is, did you enjoy yourself?
I had a great time. This was a lot of fun.
Okay, great. You have any questions for us?
Where did Ushy go?
Ushy is running a business for us and with us, and he has sometimes a hard stop, so he disappeared. But I want to tell you, I'm feeling the emptiness in this chair, and I hope that I'm doing a good job taking it over. So we have one final question for you, which is, who would be a great guest on the None of Your Business podcast, in your opinion? Someone that you can, pick that would be a great guest in your seat.
So we have by us a board member of Serenity, because we're a non-for-profit, and her name is Basi Friedman.
Ooh, I know Basi.
She is very attuned, very aware to what's happening. She wears many hats, and she is a major motor that's helping us be where we're at. And she has a tremendous impact on so many different industries. So
You know what? We just spoke about this. Basi is actually a good friend of mine. And we speak all the time at shows and conferences. And, we talk about the clinic that, you guys have and the things that she's doing. You guys have an amazing event that you do annually as an organization, where you bring the police officers and the firefighters and all the different people to the fields and everyone. Can you get her on the horn?
I prepared it yesterday. Yeah. Hi, Basi. I am right now on the None of Your Business podcast with Michael Greenfield. It is, and he asked me if I could think of one person that I would think would be a great person to come on to this program. And I said there is no one like our board member, someone that has been a driving force every step of the way, and you've had such a powerful impact on Spring Valley and Muncie and so many different areas and different businesses, and I think you have a lot that you can offer. So you're on speaker with Michael over here.
That was a great pitch. Basi, hi.
You're so lucky to have Mordechai on your show.
I want to preface it. I want to preface it by saying I called you a friend, and I'll tell you, and I'll clarify it to anyone listening. I have a rule. If there's anyone that I help or that helps me in life, I call them a friend. If there's anyone that I learned something from, I call them a rabbi. So Mordechai, you're now my rabbi. Basi, you've always been my friend. Basi, do you accept?
Oh wow, I'm being put on the spot here, guys.
That's the idea.
I mean, sure, why not? I would love to share with the world, my experiences in life.
Okay, amazing. And do you consider me a friend?
You are absolutely a friend.
All right. You're amazing. Thank you. Talk to you soon. See you soon. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you again, Prime Source, our production team, our amazing production team. And thank you for Serenity for being such a valuable partner and sponsor of the None of Your Business podcast.
Thank you.
All right. Amazing.